Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to witness some scenes from the next attraction to play this theater. This picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset. We urgently recommend that if you are such a person or the parent of a young or impressionable child now in attendance, that you and the child leave the auditorium for the next 90 seconds.
Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of the Video Nasty Project. Tonight we are going to be reviewing Flesh for Frankenstein, alternately known as Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, although Andy Warhol really had nothing to do with it. Since 1910, 55 films have featured or referenced the creature of Frankenstein, and this one, hands down, gives us the nastiest, goriest, necrophilia-filled film of them all. If you're ready to fuck death in the gallbladder, let's watch the trailer.
Andy Warhol's Frankenstein is here.
Kiss him! Kiss him!
Newsweek magazine calls it the first original Frankenstein in years. A perversely fascinating movie.
Only close. Oh! Not so close! I can't... Stop it! What are you doing? I can't breathe! Stop it! Stop it!
Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, with its swooping bats, severed limbs, hideous decapitating devices, and various spare parts. They all slither off the screen in what Playboy magazine calls the most gruesome epic ever unleashed. Andy Warhol's Frankenstein, the goriest, sexiest, and wildest Frankenstein ever filmed.
And so we just got done watching Flesh for Frankenstein, a.k.a. Andy Warhol's Frankenstein. You'll notice that, in fact, there's Ian, but that's not, in fact, Brad.
No, I'm not. I'm very not Brad.
This is my good friend, Jeff.
I'm Jeff Harris.
The master and commander of the Fanboy News Network.
Yeah, over 50 episodes of that show.
We're only on, like, episode 10 or 12 here, I think.
You'll get it. Give it time.
Yeah.
It's not a race. It's a marathon.
So, you want to talk us through it a little bit?
Movie opens with children.
Actually, movie opens with Spider.
And then creepy spider and then creepy children.
Right.
Children. It moves on. You see them mucking about in a laboratory-like setting, but it's not the laboratory.
It's almost like their own little My First Mad Scientist laboratory.
It's the Fisher-Price laboratory and guillotine set.
Yeah, because the guillotine, the hole is much smaller than its doll size as opposed to person size, so they obviously do this an awful lot.
The fact that they gimmick the doll so that it bleeds when the head is cut off.
Yeah.
Which is where that scene
No,
goes.
these are very not right children.
No.
But that's okay because it's a very not right movie. Everybody in this movie's broken.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Pretty much follows the vague Frankenstein story arc.
Yes.
That you've got the mad scientist who, interestingly enough, is not actually ever identified as Frankenstein. It says it in the credits, but they only call him the Baron. They never actually say Baron Frankenstein, which I thought was weird.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen this in later movies. The vampire movies that never use the word vampire.
Zombie words out of fashion.
Yeah. But in this case, it almost seems like... I almost like they were worried people couldn't pronounce it correctly.
That's okay. Udo can barely pronounce anything correctly. I love his pronunciation of laboratory versus lavatory.
Yeah, well, it's Udo Kier,
Yeah.
who prior to this was the star of Andy Warhol's Dracula. So there's a sense of continuity there.
Right.
Both movies are equally weird.
They also share sets and talent.
Yeah.
They were shot at nearly
Well, pretty
the
much
same
back
time.
to back.
Yeah.
So the Baron's up to doing his nefarious things. He is building, actually, 2 monsters this time, technically. He calls them zombies. And you've got the luscious lady Frankenstein monster and the man Frankenstein monster. And his plan, apparently, is to eugenics.
It's totally
Very
eugenics. I mean, it's uncomfortably eugenics. He's creating these creatures to father a master race that will take over the world and replace humanity, which means he doesn't actually understand how reproduction works. But that's fine. It's he's got his plan. He's really dedicated, and sure.
Considering that his idea of creating the genetic match for perfect children involves cobbling together a man from various
The
bodies.
ideal man.
Yes, but the only thing that really is important in the whole element of it is
The DNA from the sperm, which is,
one person,
Yeah.
and one person only. The arms, the head, none of that matters.
Well,
but he has a perfect nasum.
yeah, the obsession with the nose is
Oh.
is weird. But then again, in this movie, the obsession with damn near anything is weird.
Weird.
Yes,
But I guess the point from that is, yeah, he's going about his normal things, but he needs that perfect head, and he needs somebody who has strong sexual prowess and instincts.
Of course, then we meet our the 2 not Frankenstein people, the guy from New York, and then his Serbian friend, but it turns out the brain he winds up stealing from the Serbian friend turns out to be asexual, at the very least, probably gay.
I read it very much gay coding,
Right.
in this. For the era, they never come out and say it, but this is the era when these things are strongly hinted. The fact that they have a scene in a whorehouse, and the friend from New York has 2 girls, and the Serbian friend is with 1 girl but can't take his eyes off his friend.
yeah.
So instead of getting your normal brain versus abnormal brain that your usual Frankenstein falls into, he goes for a straight brain and winds up with a queer brain, which I thought was an interesting twist.
Yes.
So he puts the queer brain in, well, actually the entire head in one of the worst special effects I've seen in a while. Grabs the head, puts it on his Frankenstein monster, and then compels the 2 to mate unsuccessfully because
the male creature just isn't into her.
yeah.
No.
I think it's worth pointing out, and this was a point Ian had mentioned when we were watching the film, the male creature is a cobble together of several
Yes.
bodies. The female creature seems to be a single body.
Right.
Yes.
With just one massive suture up her side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was that really?
Well, that was just the easy access port for Frankenstein to get his freak on.
Yes.
So we're jumping ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I think we really should mention the Baroness at
The
this point,
Baroness.
because she has been introduced at this point.
Right.
I think the important thing about the Baroness isn't just that she is Frankenstein's wife. It's that she's Frankenstein's sister.
And wife.
And wife.
With kids.
With kids, yes. The creepy kids are, in fact, the product of incest.
Another taboo box that has been ticked. I think... Okay, Mary Shelley back in the 1800s could have never written anything like this, but I think that she would have very much approved of the social taboo flipping that this movie does.
Well, if you read the original Frankenstein, one thing, especially if you're able to get yourself in the mindset of somebody from that era, is the pervasive sense of blasphemy that she has towards what the Doctor is doing.
Right.
And that conveys throughout there. So the whole idea of what Baron Frankenstein is doing is blasphemous is, in fact, the right way to keep to the spirit of the original book.
Yeah. One of the things that I hit upon, and it's I looked at this from the novel, from Shelley's writing, the creature, and this is something the creature says, because in Shelley's presentation of the story, the creature is a very sentient,
Articulate
fellow, yeah. And Sasha, the guy whose head is used in this, he speaks and rationalizes as well. But in the original, here is a bit from the creature. "Hateful day when I received life," I exclaimed in agony. "Accursed creator, why did you form a monster so hideous that even you turned from me in disgust? God, in pity, made man beautiful and alluring after his own image, but my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid even from the very resemblance. Satan had his companions, fellow devils, to admire and encourage him, but I am solitary and abhorred." It's a social commentary.
Right.
Yeah. And the social commentary is consistent here, but it's talking about the sexual mores, not the political, social standing mores. Yeah.
Although there certainly was, I remember in my notes when we were watching it, there is the threat of class warfare.
Yes.
Oh, very clearly.
I mean, one of the early plot points is that the Baroness has pulled the children out of school because she's aghast that lower class children are allowed in the school as well, and doesn't want her children associating with that riffraff.
And like how Frankenstein, he was barred from playing with the kids on the way to school. He was pretty much a generational thing.
Well, and he even called them creatures.
Yeah.
There was that separation. So class is clearly a factor in this movie, but it takes a backseat to the eugenics aspect and the fact that this movie was looking how many taboos can we break.
Yeah.
Which, let's look at taboo, because we've gotten to the point of, okay, we've hit the main plot points.
Right.
Put head of gay man on creature, try and get them to mate. It's not working. And I think it's important to point out his friend gets a job in the castle, mainly because the Baroness wants somebody to fuck.
Pretty much.
And he, of course, then catches a glimpse at dinner of his friend, 6 inches taller.
And also the night after he'd been decapitated.
Yeah. So he's looking for him. But from that end, it's, all right, how many different weird issues are we going to deal with? We have, let's go through them.
All right.
So we already have incest.
Right.
We have necrophilia because the Baron has sex with the female creature before resurrection. Although her eyes opened, I thought was weird.
I think that's a sexual awakening. I think that's a metaphor for her becoming sexually aware.
All right.
Yeah.
But still necrophilia.
Right.
What else we have?
Rape.
Rape does appear in the movie.
Although Otto's idea of sex is now associated permanently with what he saw the doctor doing, which is, I must have my hands inside, fondling the internal organs.
So he's a bad date.
Yeah.
Very bad.
No second dates for him.
Right.
Yeah. We have what else do we have? The homosexuality itself for the era was very much a taboo. And I guess the other thing I would go to is, again, they make it a taboo about the social strata.
Right.
Yeah.
Although that's less, I think even in the era that was less an issue, but they do seem to, they refer to the upper class refer to the lower class as filthy creatures.
Right.
So, and then there was the armpit thing.
The armpit thing. Oh, yeah. There is one more social, I suppose, aspect that the movie is very much trying to emulate the Hammer horror style.
Sure.
It's very gothic, very stylish, very slick. In Hammer horror, you generally, when you have females, they're really voluptuous, ultra sex kittens. So you go to the whorehouse, and you have really old prostitutes, and just kind of, not very sexy and alluring. So it's almost like Morrissey, the director, said, "Aha, you're here to be titillated? Fine, have some tits, some old, nasty, sagging tits." I thought that was an interesting take.
Well, the oddity is that was probably the most realistic part of the movie.
Probably.
That's what the prostitutes were probably like. although I think you hit on the other issue with this movie. For a movie that had so much in the way of nudity and sex, it was a very unsexy movie.
Very unsexy. Yeah. I had to try masturbating at least 3 times to the first time I saw this, and just couldn't.
You had to go there.
I'm sitting going, yeah, the sex scenes in particular were generally repulsive on some level.
Yeah. You did hit upon it exactly. The nudity is there for the sake of, we need nudity in the film. Just do it. Don't get sex is associated with the nudity. Obviously, the talent isn't comfortable with doing it. They're okay with being nude, but they're not okay with the simulated sex. Although our New Yorker didn't have much issue with it.
True.
He gave it his all.
But we did have one scene with the Baroness where it's like, oh, right, I'm supposed to look sexy now. And you can see her trying to look sexy.
Leaning back.
It not happening.
Yeah.
So we've been, with all of this, I think one thing we need to point out, there is one thing this movie does really well. Mm-hmm. And that is its set design and its cinematography.
Gorgeous. Yes. One of the things that caught attention is to my attention, and I brought up during viewing, in all of the Frankenstein films out there, how many times has a water tank appeared where a body is taken out of a water tank? And there's only one other film.
I can think of one other film, and it came after this movie. Frankenstein's lab here in this movie had a very strong Rocky Horror vibe to it. Or I suppose Rocky Horror had a very strong Flesh for Frankenstein vibe to it.
Yes, the set similarity between what we see here and Rocky Horror Picture Show, the mesh.
They've got a tank. They've got Statue of David up on the wall. That's a 2-leveled balcony thing. All it needs is a bunch of transvestite from transsexual people up there, and it would have been Rocky Horror.
And an ice cooler.
And an ice cooler, yeah.
Well, considering that this came out 2 years before, there's a really strong chance that it was a visual influence. I will say that the water tank has been used since, I think most prominently in Penny Dreadful. That I can think of.
Yes.
Which also, just for a moment, because you're talking about the articulate creature. Mm-hmm. Real quick plug, if you've never seen the show Penny Dreadful, it has the most book-accurate depiction of the creature you're ever going to come across. His physical appearance most closely matches the book, and his articulation most closely matches the book. But that is the case of, we're talking about something far better than the movie we're watching. And that's, I think, an attempt to escape. We have to keep talking about this movie because I still have notes.
Yes.
But as far as composition and whatnot goes, I mean, I loved the dinner table scene where the camera just starts and pans along and then pans back. So it's a very cleverly constructed movie. It's really gorgeous looking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The visual aspects of this movie, from cinematography and set design, that work was top notch. It's just that the rest of the movie put around it had a lot of issues, and I think part of it was you try and think, well, what was the message the filmmaker was trying? Was there a message, or was it just, you know what, we're just going to try and be weird for weird's sake?
Right. Yeah. I think there was a lot of that. It was, well, the way that David Morrissey wrote the movie was, he came in originally and said, okay, we're kind of just going to improvise our way through the story. First day of shooting, that didn't work out. So he wound up the next day, every morning he would write out that page script. And so it was very much written on the fly. So any message probably would have been accidental.
Well, and see, now that's, again, hearkening back to some of Warhol's early work. I know that we pretty much assumed that Warhol just wrote a check and dealt with distribution, but I think we determined that the New Yorker was part of Warhol's stable,
right?
Part of his factory, and Warhol did a lot of film that were improvisation. In fact, I'm still thinking, I would have to go check, but I think the actor from this movie, I don't remember the name of the Warhol film, but it was effectively an adaptation of Clockwork Orange, where he locks down a camera in a room. It never moves, and the actors move around it, and it's a largely improvised adaptation of A Clockwork Orange. So we know Warhol himself was very fond of attempts at improvisational filmmaking.
Right. Well, that's okay. Really don't know much about the factory, Andy Warhol's factory, aside from the reading I did for this movie. But it does seem very much a 70s free love. Let's just do whatever the hell we want, in our loft.
Well, and also, I mean, again, obviously there's a reason we remember Warhol. He was pushing boundaries, and some of it obviously hit quite well, but, not everything stuck against the wall. And this, I think, was an attempt by someone to mimic Warhol's style without necessarily having Warhol's vision.
Yeah. Morrissey was a part of the stable from the production end. When Andy Warhol wanted to make something more, I think his name's like Paul Morrissey. Right. He was the one who was directing the pieces. The whole element going to Europe was a part of trying to introduce them more European flavor to things. And it's like Joe D'Alessandro, I'm butchering his name, the New Yorker. It was upon the completion of this film and Blood for Dracula, he didn't want to return to New York. He stayed in Europe because he wanted a career. He saw a career possibility, and he knew he wasn't going to get it if he just stayed in the stable.
Well, I mean, that's fair. A lot of Warhol's superstars did eventually branch out.
Yeah.
And some of them ended up having great careers, and others ended up inspiring, Soul Asylum songs. The Asylum, sorry.
Right. There's actually a group out there. The name of the group is Flesh for Frankenstein.
Well,
they took it from this movie.
There's the Dandy Warhols. I was thinking of the song Edie about one of the superstars, but that's me being a music nerd now. Sorry.
Did we like the movie?
So here's my take on the movie overall.
Okay.
It's not a good movie. I cannot go so far as to say this was a good movie. But as an artifact of the era, and to really see what some of the envelope pushing of the era is, it's a fascinating artifact to watch. It's basically, I wouldn't recommend it for anyone that wants to see a good movie, but I would recommend it for anyone who wants to see what some of the attempts at filmmaking outside of the normal bounds were at the time.
Okay. I'm going to go with, so when you have a movie that is so bad it's good, usually there's one or two really what the fuck moments, where this one is pretty much non-stop what the fuck moments. So it's so mental, so bizarre, so over the top. I agree. I don't think it's necessarily a good movie, but it's certainly a spectacle to be seen. So I'm going to go yay tentatively.
From a technical standpoint, it is shot well. There are brief moments where, because the film was shot in 3D, you have these in-your-face moments. They cast actors who could act. Mm-hmm. They weren't people who had no acting ability.
But oh my god, Udo Kier is so over the top. Frankenstein generally is an over the top part. I can't think of a Frankenstein that ever played it reserved. This guy goes up to 12.
His perfect nose. His perfect nose. He has a perfect brain. He was the king I wanted, and we failed.
Yes, he very certainly does. He's somebody who, in every role he's done, he gives it his all. Mm-hmm. So acting, editing, cinematography, it's all done well. Set design, I mean, the designer did a wonderful job, but the story is where I'm lost. So I'm like, okay, I can see what you were trying to do, but it's like a whole bunch of half-completed thoughts.
It's very disjointed.
Yeah, it's where my brain keeps going with it. It's just like, all right, I can't say that this is. I have to go with what with Jeff's saying. If you want to see a product of the era, to see the filmmaking style, mm-hmm. Here's something you would watch for that. If you want to see a good Frankenstein story, no.
So, does it belong on the Video Nasty list?
Again, if we're trying to put ourselves in the mindset of a blue-haired old British lady in the 80s, it's breaking every taboo. There's necrophilia, there's homosexuality, there's incest. Forget the sex, forget the nudity, forget the gore. It's social. It's pushing too many social buttons. So from that point of view, I see them wanting to censor it for that.
And then you throw on the layer of gore, because it is a very moist movie. Frankenstein getting his hand cut off and the blood squirting. The head decapitation, it is moist.
And a lot of chests rip open and a lot more organs than would normally be in a human body falling out.
Yeah.
So, if I had to pick one, I would say put it on the nasty list.
Yeah, I this is one based on the proper nasty parameters certainly fits.
Right.
Yeah, it does. Going to court and trying to persecute somebody for it? No.
Yeah, that's a little excessive. But then all of these have been a little excessive. So
Yeah.
It's
definitely, it's not something where they just pasted Frankenstein on it.
Yeah.
No.
It is a Frankenstein themed movie in all the right ways. It's just the execution was
a little kludgy.
90 degrees from normal.
Yeah. And at the very least, I now want to go watch the Andy Warhol's Dracula just to see how batshit crazy that one is too.
Yeah, well, you know what? Having also seen that movie, you let me know what you think.
All right, fair enough. I guess that wraps it up for us then.
All right.
Good night.
Hey, podcast fans, this is what I actually look like. I'm sorry.
I'll cut you. I'll cut you. I'll put you on the cutting room floor.
Well, thank you. Even there'll be a black box right here.
There we go. I'll just do. No, I could do the pixelated out face.
Right.
Run your voice through a modulator.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for watching the Video Nasty Project this evening and our dissection of the flesh for Frankenstein. Please like, share, or subscribe, and please come back next week to see our next review.